Hello, everybody. My name is Marsh, and welcome to my review of the third episode of the House of the Dragon TV show. Let's jump into it. So, House of the Dragon Episode 3. I'm just going to jump straight into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode, feel free to pause right now and come back to the video after you watch it. So, to start off, how did I feel about the episode? Honestly, I feel like this is the worst episode so far. Not that it's bad per se, I think it's pretty average for the most part, but it is my least favorite of the three so far. The main issue I had with it is it's sort of rehashing the ideas that we received in episode 2 about duty and loyalty to the crown and things of that sort. So in episode 2, Viserys, it was his job to find someone to marry, and it was his duty to the crown to do that to strengthen his kingdom and strengthen his heir and his house. And sort of what they did now is push that responsibility onto Rhaenyra and give her perspective, because we did make a time jump of 3 years, or about 3 years it seems like, and so she's 17 now. And they're basically covering Rhaenyra's point of view now that she has to marry to help strengthen her kingdom and the crown, if that makes sense. So like that one was The Bachelor, this one's like sort of Bachelorette, not really. And it's not really an aspect or anything that gets resolved. It's more of just Rhaenyra kind of being a baby about it the whole time. She's still pissed off that Alicent married her father, obviously, and that he chose that. And she thinks he's kind of a hypocrite as well, because he talked about duty, doing things for your kingdom, marrying for your family. Meanwhile, he went and married for not the kingdom, not his family. He married Alicent for love. Not that she knows that necessarily, but it wasn't the right political choice. Versus he's trying to now force a political choice onto her. So we'll go ahead and go to the beginning of the episode. Now that we sort of talked about what it's about, and I'll go through what happens in the episode. Not everything exactly, but some of the points that I remember and want to discuss. So essentially, we jump 2 years, like I mentioned before, into the future. We see now that Aegon has been born. I don't know if this is the same Aegon Targaryen that's going to be the grandfather, I believe it is, or great-grandfather of Daenerys. If it is him, it makes sense, and I'm not a big person when it comes to the lore, so I don't know exactly if he's the direct descendant and he marries who. I don't know the spoilers of it, so I still get that freshness because I haven't really looked into it in a long time. I did at the time in the pink of Game of Thrones, but not now. But basically, he's born. He's 2 years old now, so we know at least 2 years has passed, plus 9 months from pregnancy. So almost 3 year time jump. And people are expecting him now that he's 2 to be named the heir to the throne, because he's the firstborn son, basically. And this is where our first point of conflict comes in, and a lot of it comes down to miscommunication between characters. For example, the king oftentimes, when people are bothering him about his son or who's to be heir, if he's going to be named heir, he'll oftentimes mention that he plans to keep Rhaenyra as heir, because it wasn't a choice out of whim of what his brother did. It was a choice out of love, and that he loves Rhaenyra and believes she's the best for the kingdom. And people just don't believe that, essentially, and he keeps trying to stick to his word for that. And Rhaenyra doesn't necessarily know this or believe him on it, because he did marry. He didn't marry for political reasons, though. He married for love, essentially, or what he felt was love at the time. And so he's not necessarily proving to be the man of his word, since he's been preaching to her this whole time to marry someone at the moment that can help strengthen his family. For example, they send one of the Lannisters, I guess there's twins, Tyland, and the other one, I don't remember the name, I apologize, but they send one of the twins to court her, sort of. And so she doesn't like this, obviously. They get into a fight during the hunt that was going on. The hunt is essentially for the second name day of Aegon, and they're trying to hunt a white hart stag, I guess, elk, deer. I'm not an expert when it comes to those type of breeds, so I don't know exactly, but a white hart stag, I'll say. And so they get in a big fight, essentially, and argue about that point, which it is. She does have a point. She is still being sort of a baby, especially when Alicent's trying to talk to her, and she's trying to be cordial about it. She's not being like, I'm your mother now, you need to listen to me. She's still wanting to be friends with Rhaenyra, but Rhaenyra feels betrayed and hurt by what her father did, and her marrying her father. And so it's kind of depressing seeing the two of them go apart, because she still cares, obviously, for Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is just being sort of a butt at the moment, which is understandable because of everything going on. But after that argument, Renara goes off into the woods and runs away, and then I think his name is Sir Castor, follows her into the woods to go help protect her. And we leave that there, and it comes back to the king, and the king is still struggling with his drinking that day, because he did drink a little too much wine, so he's getting a little happy. But everyone around him is trying to either marry off his daughter to someone else or convince him to name his son heir and try to solve his issues like that. And so it's just making him more and more frustrated. And we find out later in the episode when he's speaking with Alicent at the fire that the reason he's so conflicted right now is because he wants to keep his word to Rhaenyra and the kingdom of naming Rhaenyra the heir and keeping her. But the dream he had originally when he was younger of having a son that would conquer the world and rule the world is something he still wants to fulfill. He always wanted to be a dreamer, not necessarily a dragon rider. And so the fact that now he has a son, it is conflicting with him, and he doesn't know if he made the right decision or if he's making the right decisions. So he's conflicted and he's struggling with that, and the alcohol is not helping at the moment, so he's kind of on edge. But it leaves it there somewhat unresolved, and Alicent is actually, I would say, a genuinely good person, even though she's being used by her father to try to manipulate everything. She doesn't want to manipulate. She's not jaded toward the king either. She still has some feelings or is cordial towards him, and she actually kind of defends Rhaenyra in a lot of cases and wants to help Rhaenyra out, her friend basically. And so she's just in the middle of being manipulated by her father into all of this. It goes off though. The king finishes his hunt. He kills the stag. It's not the white hart they found, and so he kills that stag. We also see a part at nighttime where Rhaenyra and Castor get attacked by a boar, and Rhaenyra kills the boar. And so before they bring the boar back to the camp and she goes back to the camp, they actually see the white hart that escaped, and Castor wants to kill it. And sorry if his name isn't Castor, but he wants to kill it. And she says, no, let him go. Some type of symbolic thing. I don't know. It's less like Harry Potter with like the Patronus or something. I don't know. But anyways, they let the stag go, and then they go back to camp. Everyone sort of sees her with the boar that she hunted and killed, and she kind of gains a level of respect towards like some of the men at least. They get back to the kingdom, and that's basically the end of that part per se. They still talk to Rhaenyra, or the king talks to Rhaenyra about certain things, taking her word about marrying into the family. They have their arguments, and they somewhat resolve it. Not really. They're still conflicted, but he tells her that he is going to send help to Daemon. And I'm wondering, in all of this as well, Rhaenyra mentions that she doesn't want to marry. I don't know if that's necessarily because she's worried about being married off, or I wonder if she has feelings for Daemon and she's upset that he's gone still. I don't know if that's what it is, because she's also trying to defend and help Daemon a lot most of the time. But the king decides to send help, and he goes and sends a letter to Daemon. And then we cut on over to the Stone Steps, I believe it was. And we get to see how the conflict is going 2 years afterwards with the Velaryons and Daemon. And at first, the first thing we see of it is him flying in with his dragon, and we see that the crab people or Prince Drahar has gotten his people into the caves, and so they can defend against the dragon because they can hide in the caves, and they have like a canyon, so it's very hard to penetrate. And so it's not the best, and even Daemon gets shot when riding the dragon, so they're not able to just sweep in and kill them immediately, which is good because it gives us more conflict and stuff to deal with, as we see later in the episode. But then we have one of our first big battle scenes later in the episode, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, the party with the note from the king that says we're sending help comes, and Daemon reads the note, and he tries to kill the person who provided it. He beats him, but the Velaryons separate him. And it's mostly Daemon's ego. We actually don't get any dialogue, I think, from him this episode. Or if there is, it's only like a few words. So it's pretty interesting the way that, I believe it's Matt Smith, had to act the whole thing out with not having any dialogue in the whole episode. But he still did good. He makes a plan to go by himself and try to lure out Prince Drahar, because the problem is they're all in the caves. So he goes, waves the peace flag, lures him out, and this is where you get the plot armor and the sort of unrealistic stuff, because he literally has 2 cliffs of like archers shooting at him and everything, and he doesn't like get hit at all for a long time. He eventually does get hit while fighting, and then he crawls under like a ship, and then the Velaryons show up since they've been dragged out, and so does a dragon rider that we don't know the name of yet, and they destroy everyone. He kills Prince Drahar, and he wins his war. And he basically did this drastic measure because I think he doesn't want to accept help from his brother. He doesn't want to be dependent upon his brother, and he doesn't want to seem weak. And so that made him do this drastic measure. And I don't know if it was an actual plan or if the Valerians just knew about it and reactionarily went to go save him. And so it may have worked out that way. That happens. He kills Prince Drahar. That's the end of that war. And that's the end of the episode as well. We do see a little sneak peek for next episode saying that Daemon gets named King of the Seas or something like that. I probably got that wrong. I apologize. But some type of king of his kingdom. And this is setting up the Civil War. There's going to be another time jump, obviously. And so they're going to jump probably in not every episode, but a good majority of them, I'd say. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that and what they're going to do with Rhaenyra, if she marries or not. I still think she's in love with Daemon in some way, and she might try to marry him. And going back into what I said on the previous episode, I mentioned that the king, part of him marrying Alicent, or in his mind marrying him, is he might not have very much time to live because of his diseases and everything going on. But this is 3 years later. So that means he could have married the Valerian girl, and he would have been able to have a kid. She would have been 15 now. Still not an ethical age in our times, but it's not an issue of he's going to die right now, so he needs to have a child with someone like I mentioned previously. So that's a thing as well, to where he's just a worse decision maker, honestly. And he's not a very good king, as we see. He might be a good person per se, but he doesn't make the best decisions, as we see. Anyways, though, overall for the episode, it was pretty good. It was still a good episode. It's probably my least favorite of the three. I'd probably give it a 6.5, maybe a 7. I'll go with a 7 to round it up, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Least favorite of the three, but I still have major interest in the show and I want to continue and see what goes on. And just because it's the least favorite of the 3 episodes doesn't mean I don't like it. I do like it very much, actually. And so we'll see what happens with all of that. Once more, go ahead and let me know what you think about the episode. If you enjoyed it, if you disliked it, if you noticed any Easter eggs. If you know what happens, no spoilers, please. But let me know your theories if you don't know anything and you haven't read the books. It'll be interesting to discuss in the comments below. Other than that, I hope you liked the video. If you can leave a like, subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next episode. Bye-bye.